Hey everybody, I'm Matt Margolis. I'm the head of community at Lawtrades. If you don't know what Lawtrades is, we are a legal tech startup that helps busy in-house departments and law firms with their staffing needs, attorney, paralegal, legal operations professional, what have you, flexible on-demand talent. I'm super excited today because we're talking about one of my favorite topics with some of my favorite people. We're talking about building a legal community. If you follow me on social media, you follow Heather, you follow Kyle, you follow Brittany on social media, you know this is kind of our thing. So we're all very excited to be here. Heather, do you mind giving us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently general counsel at Red Cell Partners. We are a venture capital and incubation firm. I've only been there about 6 months, a little bit less. Before that, I was in-house at the Boston Globe. And before that, I had quit the law entirely to start a juice bar. I started my career in big law, and I've definitely had a bit of a winding path, which has been made much better and more fun by being on LinkedIn. I'm excited to be here.
And Brittany?
Yeah, so I have been in-house for about 6 years. Latest right now is general counsel for Civix. I, like Heather said, I was had my first go around with big law, did not enjoy it whatsoever, so that's why I went in-house, found LinkedIn, and couldn't be happier.
Kyle?
Save the least interesting for last. So
True.
I'm Kyle Robisch. I'm still in big law. I won't use the word stuck because I actually kind of like it where I found myself lately. It's interesting that I'm here because if you told law school Kyle that he'd be doing a panel about posting on LinkedIn and building a network online, he would have dropped out probably law school. Immediately, I started with clerking for a judge in Orlando, went to Venable in DC for 4 years, and then I've been now at Bradley. Arant Boult Cummings in Tampa for a little shy of 3 years. And I've been posting on LinkedIn for about that same amount of time.
Nice. Wow, this is funny because I'm the only one I think with no big law experience. So I come from a background, I guess I'll give a little bit more in my background for everyone listening is I come from tiny law, small law. Someone once called me insignificant law, which I'll never forget that to the end of time. It still hurts. After working in private practice, I went in-house as the head of legal or director of legal for private equity group. And because I loved, I guess probably because I'm so loud, I ended up leaving law and becoming head of community at Lawtrades. So thank you guys again for being here. I guess the big first question is, what is building legal, what is a legal community to you guys? What does that really mean? Anyone feel free to start.
Well, I mean, I'll jump in because I think the three people that I'm co-panelists with, so to speak, sort of define it for me, right? So like I said, I didn't ever really post on LinkedIn. I was the guy who posted the cool award that I won in law school that nobody cared about. And then I log off for another year, and then I'd post that same thing again in a year. But then I logged on when I moved from Washington, D.C. to Tampa, and I broadened my practice a little bit. I was like, I should check this out. And one of the first people I came across in my feed was Heather. Back when she was at the Globe, and I was like, this is actually interesting content. It's substantive. There's conversations happening. All right. And I just kind of jumped into the comment section. And then I met some other people, Alana Cohn here in Tampa, just a bunch of other people, Brittany along the way, Matt along the way. And I'm like, this is awesome. There's some real conversations to be had here. And it's not just what everyone says that it is. And then once I figured that out, it only grew and grew and grew. And well, I guess now here we are.
That's a fair point. Heather and Brittany.
Sure. So just to add to that, I think, I used to think of legal community as the lawyers kind of in my practice area physically near me, like in Boston or prior to that in New York. But then the pandemic kind of changed that. I think for me and everyone, I moved in many ways my community online. There were the people who I knew in person from Boston or who I knew from working directly with. But when the pandemic started, I missed the networking events. I think so many people who are active on LinkedIn, Alex Sue is partially responsible for pulling me into this little world. I joined an online event for in-house counsel, which was really my first experience expanding my legal community digitally. From there, started posting online. And then the interesting thing that's happened for me, and I think at least for Kyle as well, maybe for all of you, is that this community that grew online is now coming back into the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm using LinkedIn to get to know more and more people. But some of those people are now people who I can, sit face to face with and have a cup of coffee, which is so cool.
Heather, I like to tell Alex that I was his last presenter, so it kind of ended with a boom. He hasn't had
for the Zoom things.
So, I mean, if that says anything. So, yeah, I mean, like Heather said, I would go to events. Like for me, I would go to events, especially like I'm part of our local ACC chapter. And I would stand in a corner. Like I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would like kind of keep to myself. I would pretty much be like, when the hell is this thing over? So I can go back and watch Netflix. Like
Nice.
I just wanted to like show up, do my thing and leave. And then the pandemic happened and it was kind of like there was no one to talk to. I was like doing my thing, like, for work by myself. And I was just like, I discovered LinkedIn and one thing led to another. And I would see like posts and I'd be like, yeah, I agree. I kind of have like a different thought of this, what have you. And I just started posting and I post not only to help people, because I think that's my main goal is to help people, because I want to show that there's substance and I want to show like the me 10 years ago, like that I didn't have anyone to like look to and be like, hey, like this is how you do XYZ. Like that's why I do it. And so it's just kind of created from there. And I don't know, I really enjoy it.
Yeah. To all your points, like I think the pandemic, right, really accelerated all of this. And Heather, to your point, when I first started like online trying to create a legal community, it was weird because I was the same way. I was like, well, like my legal community is in like Florida. Like I would go to court, I would go to like Motion Calendar, I'd see the same attorneys and I'm like, oh, like that's it. Like,
yeah.
Right. And like Brittany too, because you're in Orlando, like the same thing for litigation. You go to Motion Calendar in Orange County and it's like the same people you see over and over again. Kyle, same for you for in Tampa or in DC. And I went online, I started meeting these attorneys in Heather, like in Boston, or Brittany in Orlando, because I'm down in South Florida. Kyle, you were, I think, probably in DC at the time, and all these different places. And I'm like, oh, this is actually the legal community. Like it's not just Florida, not even just Florida, like Boca Raton, Florida, like this little subset of a subset of a subset of the community. And like to all of you, like it created this very wide net legal community that now, Heather, to your point as well, like I'm now meeting in person, and Brittany also for like I know you're going to ACC events and whatnot, like seeing these folks, and it's that a true now in and out legal community, inside the computer, outside of the computer. So it's definitely surreal. So
I mean, to put a period on that, like, or a semicolon or something, right?
I don't know.
I moved to Tampa, and then I started one of the people I started conversing with on Heather's post. I remember this very clearly was Elena Cohn, and she's now in-house at Advent Health, super awesome person. I was new to Tampa. I was just excited to see another Florida lawyer besides Matt, who was way funnier than me posting. We got to know each other. And then fast forward 9 months later, we ended up going to a hockey game. Now we go to lunch every few weeks. That was a relationship that started on LinkedIn. And is now, we hang out. We're real friends in real life. And it's cool to see how often that happens. That's just one example. But I mean, that took less than a year from getting to know each other on LinkedIn. We got to know each other really authentically. And then we were like, oh, let's actually hang out in real life because we live not very far away from each other. It's cool.
That's an interesting point. I mean, it is an interesting point too, because it's like there even is like the legal, like the Boca Raton legal community, but like I don't know everyone in the Boca Raton legal community, and utilizing social media, the internet, what have you. Like I could meet these people that maybe aren't at those Motion Calendar. They're not in court. They're not sitting on the other side of the phone on a deal. So I think that's a very valid point as well. So let me ask you guys this: like you've created this legal community for yourselves. Has it helped with professional development?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it makes me a lot stronger. Like I'm much more confident in what I have to say. I write better because obviously a lot of the content creation that we do, I have to make sure it's in whatever characteristics they want us to write in when we have to, post. I have to make sure it's condensed, concise, and gets to the point. So I definitely think it has helped professionally tremendously. I know Sean's on here. Me and Sean talk about that a lot, how it's helped us just kind of hone in our professional skills for sure.
Sure.
Whoever wants
to stand off. Whoever wants to go.
I thought Heather was going to have something really brilliant to say, which she usually does, and I was just going to piggyback and be like, that was a great point. Matt, you're, I think, the prime example, right? Like we met on LinkedIn a long time ago when we were sort of like on the same parallel track, right? We were in theory competitors. You were at another law firm in Florida, and I was a law firm in Florida. And you were just making funny videos. And I was like, this is really funny stuff. Keep it coming. And then it turned into you going in-house at your old shop. Now that shop is a client of mine solely because it was all fortuitous, right? When you reached out, we found each other. We're like, hey, there's a need. There's a we offer something that you're looking for at the right time. You've since left. Now you're at Lawtrades. But my point being, that's very concrete. Like, I was telling to somebody else recently, I did not think that would happen when I first reached out. And I was like, keep the really funny videos making fun of us coming, right? That was not where I saw that going. It's awesome that it did, and it's super great. And it's awesome, but it started with a real authentic connection. Like, what you're saying and doing resonates with me, and I just want to let you know about that. And now we have a relationship, both personally, professionally, business-wise, all of that. And I think that's just in a nutshell for me. People that I'll never get business from, that I just had really good conversations with, that I just enjoy talking to. I think it kind of is a very holistic, positive impact on my career trajectory. And I think that looking forward 4 years, at that point when I look back, there's gonna be way more twists and turns like that, where I'm gonna be able to say where I am in my career it's really enriched by.
It's gonna sink mine though. You watch out. Right?
Yep, exactly.
Keep mine down. Well, I guess, Heather, I think you've got a great story to this. Like, I think your professional network led to like an awesome career. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So I had been posting on LinkedIn for a while when I hired a woman, Margaret Garrity. If anyone needs a new resume, she's great at updating them. Anyway, she helped me update my resume for a legal writing professor job. And then we just kind of stayed in touch, and I was top of mind for her when a friend of hers, who I had never met, asked for an in-house lawyer who also had experience as a founder. And she thought of me, she connected me to my now boss. And here I am, almost a year later at Red Cell, because this woman who I knew through LinkedIn thought of me because of my LinkedIn posts and connected me. And we had my network and the Red Cell network where I am now had almost no other overlap. So it really was like LinkedIn, and there's this one fairly random connection that ended up bringing us together, which is so cool because the job's been great for me.
That's amazing. That's that's kind of how I got my job when I went in-house. Someone had seen some things I posted online. And they're like, hey, you do X, Y, and Z, right? I'm like, yeah, sure. Of course, right? Yeah, I do all those things. And that's ended up making that same kind of connection. That's how I got my job. I think that is the most stellar thing. And I hear about these stories like near constantly where you don't have, to everyone's point, right? Your legal network isn't just stuck in Boston or in Florida. It's quite broader than that, where, one person in Minnesota can get you a job.
Yeah. And now with remote stuff, it's beneficial because thankfully I'm not stuck in a Florida capacity anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly
Even though
right.
I love the state, if anybody's listening, I've been here my whole life.
I was like, well, hold on. Brittany, if you're going anywhere, you're going to Lawtrades. First off, listen.
There you go. Hey, I pass by you every Sunday for the Miami Dolphins game. Drive out by.
We're not going there. I'm a Patriots fan. Anyway, so we got a good question actually from the audience. Have you ever experienced any criticism or anything negative from coworkers, clients, bosses, etc., due to your online activity? If so, how have you handled it?
My boss loves it. He thinks I'm
Nice.
a legal influencer, and he laughs every day. He comments, he'll teams me and be like, hey, what about that post today? Are you pissed at me or something? I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great for me. My coworkers, they talk about it. We'll be in meetings. They're like, hey, what do you do? Or ask me about a post or something. Haven't, at least internally, haven't received any criticism. They all love it. But again, I guess the bigger question I'm sure we're going to get to is the environment you're in. If you're in a happy, good environment and good culture, they love it and they don't mind.
That's exactly right. Heather,
My
how?
experience has been similar to Brittany. People love it. And it's actually been really great, more so at the Globe, though Red Cell too. Mm-hmm. The Globe's a really big company. I found that I was developing closer relationships to some of my coworkers because of my LinkedIn post, which was totally unexpected. Yeah. But it just brings you to topics you wouldn't otherwise discuss with coworkers. So I think this is a really common fear Sean brought up, and I'm sure in some context, I'll be curious to hear from Kyle because I think it might be different at firms, but I've had no criticism and only, positive feedback.
So Kyle, do you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting, I just got back from our firm retreat in Boca, Matt, as you know, and I'd say like every 30 minutes or so, someone will walk up and be like, "Oh, you're the Kyle, LinkedIn guy, right?" So my firm has offices across the Southeast. I work with a lot of these people. Some of them I have not had the opportunity to work with yet, but I was the LinkedIn guy. Or if someone said the hashtag LinkedIn lawyer, they were trying to get me to trademark that. But I mean, so there's like a positive.
There's no way that exists still. It's gone.
Not after I've trademarked it. But I mean, it opened up a lot of doors and natural bridges. People knew who I was. People knew about my son because I post about parenting and Teddy and how much I love that, some of the challenges. And it was really, really great. But I mean, stepping back from that just example that I just lived, I mean, honestly, you might be surprised, but Bradley's been really, really great about and encouraging of me posting on LinkedIn. I've given some talks within the practice groups about what I do and why I do it and how it's worked, like many versions of this. Every once in a while, people will, ask questions or encourage me to be not. I've never gotten criticism for a post, but just pay attention. Think about the fact that when you post, you're posting for the law firm, and some generations view this a little differently than you do, but no one has ever said anything other than this is awesome. Keep doing it. You
guys are leading perfectly to this. So I've gotten criticism from multiple employers.
That's not surprising.
So to answer, listen to their point. Fair. No, so I've gotten the criticism, and I think the criticism that I received from, it was never coworkers. It was employers. It was bosses. Yeah. The criticism I generally would receive is the professionalism aspect of it, right? Like, and I think that's something that's being chiseled away by folks over time, but it was being professional online. And what professional probably meant to them is posting, everyone knows, like the articles that we all are blasting our emails, right?
Yeah.
Counsel, Kyle.
I'm a super lawyer, okay? And I just need to let you know.
Sure. So getting very, like that's really what we, of, like the attorney advertisements, the articles, the legal updates, what have you. So I was posting I think at the time I was posting TikToks, like a lot of TikToks, and I was cross-posting them on LinkedIn. And I was told, that's probably not very professional skits, right? And I think at the time Alex was starting to do it. And the only people that we were really the only legal TikToks on LinkedIn, I think. And LinkedIn is much more visible for all of our employers, for all of our clients, for all of our whoever, much more in the professional space than say on TikTok at the time, especially, or on Twitter or on wherever. And I had to tailor it. And I think to Brittany's point, it's the environment. So eventually I did leave those employers because that is something I did want to pursue, was creating this content. But you have to know you have to know the balance. You have to know what your employer is comfortable with, what your client base is comfortable with. Kyle, to your point, like you could be working with a different generation, a generation that's probably not used to, not comfortable with that level of humor, that level of personality, that level of like true, like this is my life outside of being a lawyer. So just being cognizant of that. But yeah, I've received it. And I'm probably the worst employee because I was like, I posted through it. It's like when you tweet through something, you're like, no, I'm just going to keep going. It's all right. Keep doubling down like we're playing blackjack.
For me, the biggest challenge, to touch on what you were just saying, Matt, is always, I like to post about my personal experiences. I know we'll talk about this later, but like authenticity, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but I think it's really being genuine and authentic is what creates real relationships. And that's just as true on LinkedIn as it is anywhere else. But as a result, especially as an outside counsel, right, I have to be careful about posting about what I've done and what I haven't done in cases and with clients.
Absolutely.
Because I just want to be hypersensitive to the fact that I don't want to reveal things that shouldn't be revealed, or even say something generally that might be viewed as, well, I know what he's talking about. I don't want that ever to be the case. But at the same time, I want to be so general that I'm just posting ads and pictures without meaning, right? And so that is something I'm constantly thinking about, balancing that line. I think so far I've gotten it, but it's a thought that's never far from my mind.
Sure.
And so it's probably taking a little bit of creativity off the table, but not all that much, I guess.
I know there's a real difference between like where me and Heather sit versus like Kyle, where you sit, because I can still see firms like when I meet them at ACC events, and they're still very, I hate to say, like stuck in the 50s. Like it's just like you can just tell like they're like what is this LinkedIn? Like, why do you do this? Like, they're not for it at all. And then I've heard, and I posted about this, I've heard that they, like, some associates get paid not to post. And if they do post, only post like firm newsletters, what you're saying, Matt. And so it's just kind of like, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. And when I hear this stuff, I'm just like, God, like, it's obviously the culture and the environment, but it's like, breathe some fresh air into your life. Like, go have fun. Like, go do something. I don't know.
Touch grass.
Yeah, I was going to add to what Kyle said, probably part of why we haven't had criticism, and Matt's trying to be funny, and the criticism was just don't be funny, which is its own issue. But, you know, we all are really being cognizant of all the implications of what we're posting. You know, if you look at my LinkedIn, you can tell I've only worked at one law firm. So if I say something negative about a law firm that I've worked at, it's that one. And if I say something negative about, like, you know, the senior associate who made partner while I was there, like, it's pretty easy to figure out very specifically who I'm talking about, at least for people who've worked there. So I'm always really, really careful to keep things vague, never tell other people's personal stories, because it's just not worth it or necessary.
I couldn't agree. I actually had that happen where I had a former partner text me, and he's like, "Was that about me?" And I swear, no, it was about a different partner. It was a big firm. So it was a different partner in a different office, because I was splitting time in two offices at one point. And I'm like, no, I swear. But, like, to your point, Heather, like, when you give away some of that information, your content or posting online or videos on TikTok or Twitter or whatever it is, there's a fine line, because if you give too much information, you have to be okay with the consequence of an attorney on the other side or whoever it is saying, I'm the joke. I'm the joke on this one, or I'm the moral of the story, right? Like, I'm the bad guy in the room. Like, I wrote about a recruiter a couple of days ago. He could see it. I hope he sees it, actually, but he could see it, and, like, I have to live with the consequences that there was only one recruiter who said it to me at this one period of time. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's really valuable advice. So I'm going to ask my next question. I'm going to get back on track a little bit, or I'll try. But so, anything you wish you knew before you started posting online, not just on LinkedIn, right? Because if you're posting on Twitter or TikTok, whatever, any sort of social media posting, creating your legal community, like, what do you wish you could tell yourself before you did it?
I would say I wish I'd known how easy it was just to kind of jump in at the beginning, right? Like, when I jumped into Heather's comment thread, right? And I know I keep coming back to that, but that really was like a watershed moment in my mind. Look at all this stuff happening here and how quickly I was able to engage people I literally never heard of before, seen before, talked to before. I was like, this was here the whole time. And I waited and I waited. I waited for my entire clerkship. I waited for 4 years in Washington, D.C. That's 6 years of my practice where I could have been meeting people, learning from people, engaging with people, building that network. And I didn't. And I'm glad that I did it. Better late than never, right? But I wish I'd done it earlier. And I think a lot of people have this idea that you need to start with a really cool, interesting post that you've got, and it needs to be really, really brilliant and genius. And I can tell you, speaking from experience, it does not have to be that. And in fact, I think a lot of times it starts with just a comment or a tweet or a video, right? I mean, certainly don't want to speak for you, Matt, but I assume that you started in your first few videos had 1 or 2 or 3 views, right? And now you can look backwards and go, oh my God, look at how far I've gotten, how far I've come. 100%. I feel that way about my LinkedIn community and connections and conversations, right? I'm having much better conversations and connections now than I did when I first started, but I had to get there. I had to start somewhere. And for me, it was really just the comment sections. And then it turned into posts, and now it's turned into real life friends and dinners and business and all the kind of stuff that you don't even think is possible when you start. But the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to get to all those places.
Agree with all that. And I would just add, I think there's, at least for me and for many people I've talked to, there's kind of like this fear of not getting it quite right at first, or of people reacting negatively. And I'm sure there are people who react negatively to my posts, but most of them keep it to themselves. The only times I've had people publicly react negatively to my posts are when the posts have gone massively viral. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I made inevitably the same type of person mad by saying something that, like, 20,000 people agree with, but he's mad. Okay. That did not happen at first at all. So I think, like, at least for me, the fear was misplaced, and your people will find you and the other people will largely leave you alone.
Yeah.
That is really good advice.
To what Kyle and Heather said, like, I think it's very impactful, and I wish I would have known that and started sooner. actually gave it up for 6 months last year because I just got really busy with family life and stuff, and I just stopped and I missed it, so I came back. But the one thing I guess I can say to the opposite end of the spectrum, the bigger you get, and I'm sure you know this, Matt, the more criticism you get. I have had negative comments, and I've had, comment wars in my posts between people. I had someone steal my post 2 days ago. I asked them to take it down, and on a comment, they deleted my comment, kept the post up. So they were reported, and then it got taken down. So yeah, so like it's both ends of the spectrum. Like it's really great because I wish I would have started sooner. But then you obviously, get the trolls every once in a while. And
I want to know who that was. You can tell me after the fact. I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I've had that happen before. It sucks. Yeah, no, I think all of that is valid. It's not the question I asked, but I think it's a valuable point that what you said, Heather, is when things get really big, when things go really far, you attract people that are not your intended audience, not your community. I think that's something that it's a point I really just wanted to get across, and I think I'm able to shoehorn it just enough into here. But when and this is something I wish I could tell myself in the past as well, is don't go for virality. You don't want to be viral. Yeah. Being viral, I've had posts go 150,000 likes, 200,000 likes. It doesn't do anything. Maybe you'll get followers on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, whatever. That's not a legal community. Those are just people that thought that was one post was insightful, or that was funny, or whatever it is. You want to create longevity. You want 1,000 followers, 1,000 people in your community is a lot. That is your true community that relate to you, that share this, this kind of like relationship with you, right? Is much stronger than 10,000 people. I will say that till the end of time. And that's something I wish I could tell myself before, because I think at one point in my life, I'm like, gotta go viral. It's like guerrilla marketing, like gotta go viral. And I realized I'm like, that doesn't create a community. I just have I've got like 100,000 people that think I'm a weirdo. Like, that's cool. I mean, that's cool. Like that 100,000 people think I'm strange and they all banded together to follow me, to watch me like do stupid stuff like I'm at a zoo. But that's not what, that's not a community. That doesn't benefit you. That doesn't benefit them. So I think that's big advice. And that's something I probably would have told myself before, is like creating a legal community, focus on community building, not focus on being famous, because being famous or getting big numbers or looking at vanity stats, it's just not what, it's the different goal. If you want to be a celebrity, that's awesome, but that's not building a community. So I wish I could just like tell Matt that, like, stop focusing on 1 million views and maybe focus on 10,000 views, the best people imaginable. Right. So that's,
it's funny that you say that. People always ask me, and I don't know if you guys do it, but people always ask me like, what's your like viewership? What's your
viewership?
Like, and I'm like, I don't even like save my posts in a Word doc. Like I got to start saving them somewhere. Like I don't keep track of any of that. I just enjoy doing it. Now, eventually I think I need to start getting more into looking at that, but I don't know.
Well, my Word doc is my ADHD. So I do have a Word doc on my desktop. And that's where I put stuff, but that's mostly because I'm ADHD and I will forget about it. And then I'll get really angry because I'll remember I had an idea and then I will remember that I don't remember the idea. Yeah. So it's also a graveyard of posts, right? There are a lot of ideas that start there and don't.
It's my Twitter draft.
Think about it later, it doesn't resonate, and I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna leave it there. It takes me a while to delete it. But it's interesting. I did look. I remember a couple weeks ago I looked back on like not all of my posts, but the last like few months of them. And I noticed that there are posts that go really viral, and then there are posts that don't. Then there are some that get some likes, but a lot of comment generation. And I clicked on those ones, and I found those are the ones that actually had the best like conversations with and turned into a relationship growing, right? Because something triggered a nerve, not a nerve, but like a resonation with somebody, and it turned into a whole conversation. And those are the best in my book.
1000% comment sections where it's at. Like that's my like jam. Like, I want to like interact with people. And that's where, to you, Matt, like when things go viral, I'm like, whoa, this is too much. Like I can't comment to all of you, and I feel bad that I'm not responding to you guys. So I enjoy the comments. So
totally agree. And I feel like on some of the really viral posts, all the comments become like, this is great or good point. I'm like, thank you for commenting. I do appreciate it, but it's not really.
For that.
There was there must be like someone that's like one of those coaches that's out there that tells people to do that. It has to be, because we're like, yeah, right. Great point. Like it's the reverse of like what I'm talking about. Like if like
this is step one of how to interact on LinkedIn. Go comment on people's great points.
Well, I mean, a lot of times I've started comment. This happens to me probably multiple times a day, where I'll start to comment and then I'll look at what I'm writing. I'm like, this doesn't add any. I don't actually. I like what I'm seeing and I'm interested, so I'm going to slap a like or a love or whatever on it. Maybe I'll say something, but a lot of the time I'll just be like, no, I don't have anything like in this moment that's resonating that I'm going to add. But when I do, I know that I do, and because it just kind of happens naturally. But I walk away from a lot of comments, not because they were dangerous or too political or anything like that, just because I didn't want to become cacophony or noise, right?
Have you guys ever had a comment where like they clearly didn't read the post and they comment? I'm like,
yes,
I didn't say that, and I like literally have to be like, can you go read the post? That's not what I was saying at all.
I had someone recently on one. They reshared a post and it was like, these younger attorneys don't know the difference between lawyer, attorney, and attorney at law. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's the takeaway? That's the takeaway on that one? Like, that's what you're like, this is the point he's secretly making. Like, that's the subtext. So I agreed.
What is the difference?
Don't start with it, Kyle.
Yeah.
Don't you do this. I've fought too many battles on the difference. There's no difference between lawyer and attorney. But
I had that. If that's what you're talking about. I had a comment war on one of mine.
Talk about that later.
Yeah, I was like, really? We're gonna go back to law school, and because that's where it originated. Everyone says, lawyer versus attorney. If you're JD, then you're a lawyer. If you're Esquire, and I'm like, we're way too old for that.
I've never heard this.
I didn't know any of this. Yeah, with Heather.
This is a bit of an aside, but that is something that's circulated on the internet. It's one of those like weird, like if you Google it, there's a bunch of like articles drafted by people that like read the dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
And
why do people care though? Like,
that's my thing. I'm like, this is a thing.
Know.
Yeah.
Hierarchy, likely, right? Yeah. Hierarchical. Oh, I'm an attorney, I'm not a lawyer. So it's crazy because if you look at the Florida Bar website, lawyer and attorney are used interchangeably.
Same.
So anyways, back on track. I've got a question for you guys. And I think it goes back to my question or my point where it's like focusing on going viral is not the answer. Well, what about focusing too small? I think we've all seen it on social media. You see clicks. You see folks only commenting on the same folks. We're trying to build a legal community, but they're only talking to like 5 people. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And how do you avoid being in like a general social media clique?
I've actually had to like sometimes, and I don't even know where it is, but like I have to like remember to like, because you post and then you have to like respond to your comments, and then like you also have to like comment to other people that you enjoy their posts too. And so sometimes I feel bad when I don't get to certain people, and then like obviously they go off because the algorithm and all that. Like I used to create a list, I don't have it with me, but like of people, like a list of people like, hey, I really like their post. Usually if the algorithm doesn't show it, like let me go to their page or whatnot, because I mean a lot of it's algorithm based, but I feel bad when like there's a bunch of people that I like just interacting with because they interact with mine and I've seen their stuff or I've seen their posts and I really kind of jive with it, and then I feel bad when they kind of like fall off because of the algorithm.
I've done something similar. And then also on kind of like the opposite approach of trying to find new people and get new people exposure. If I see a post that someone's liked, but someone out of my network, if a post from out of my real network somehow comes before me and I like it a lot, I make an extra effort to comment because it perhaps will kind of create a new relationship with me and that person. And also because of the exposure that my comment might create to my network so that we can just grow, because the clicks are no fun. And the worst are those like comment pods. Those are how you get a lot of those like great posts, not necessarily on our posts if we're not joining them, but you can see when they happen and they're so boring. And I want to like break those up and get substantive comments.
Yeah.
It's like the same 5 people over and over and over again.
That's one of the things I like about the algorithm, I think, which is when I log in, there's at least every like 10 seconds of scrolling or 20 seconds, there's something in my feed. I'm like, I have no idea who this person is.
Yeah.
but it's because somebody I know has sort of liked it and pulled it into my feed. And every once in a while, I'm like, this is really great stuff. It's not it's either a lawyer I've never met before, or someone who's not a lawyer at all. And to Heather's point, I try to do that all the time. If I see that I try to make a conscious effort, I really like it. I want to inject a comment into it, not just to like, I'll like it too, but I want to start that conversation because I want to see where it goes. I want to meet who I haven't met yet.
Yeah.
And I want to build the network, right? And I think that's a way to build the network and sort of break out of the not break out of, but sort of expand the direction in which your network goes. And that's something I've really liked. The other thing that I've found myself doing more lately is a lot of my network is lawyers, right? I think, which is the case for a lot of us here. But I also have a lot of friends who aren't lawyers, thank God. And I've noticed that in certain topics like parenting, for example, or like just working in a job that requires a lot of you, right? Those kind of topics and trends reach far more than lawyers. And so people will start commenting and adding their own experiences as accountants or nurses or doctors or whatever it might be. And there's like the lesson I picked up on is like, well, maybe sometimes I should extend my comment or thought or post or whatever it might be next time, because I want to hear perspectives from more than just lawyers, right? I love lawyers.
Accountants are like, no one realize, maybe they do realize it, but I've just recently in the same boat where like on Twitter is a good example where I've expanded outside of legal Twitter to accountant Twitter because it's like the same thing, but slightly different. Like I'm learning Excel as I laugh at these jokes and VLOOKUP, which is it's a whole new thing for me. But to your point, like that's expanding outwards. Like I'm actively going to these other areas of social media where I'm like, I'm not familiar, but it's close, right? Yeah. And that's a good way to start into. Like for me, accounting was close. Eventually and then I think I ended up into financial Twitter, and then I ended up into real estate and S&B Twitter. And like, you just like start going out into these things. And my network is much larger now. My community is much larger. And it's not like I'm trying to get all of these pockets, just like pieces of people in it, meeting these people, learning these new things, adding people to my community, finding ways I can assist those people as a lawyer, which you could probably assist more being a lawyer for someone who's not a lawyer than the revert or lawyers. But definitely true. We've got a question here I want to address real quick, and I think it's interesting. So using LinkedIn as a personal brand to get a job, specifically speaking, from a perspective of a postgraduate law student, the do's and don'ts of approaching and connecting with people. So long and short, I think from this question is just like, how do you network, right? How do you network through LinkedIn? What would be y'all's advice?
I mean, if you're talking specifically about a post-grad law student, like don't come to us and be like, hey, I need a job. Do you know anything that's open? I'm like, no. But if you come to us and say like, hey, like what do you look for? Like, what can I work on? Like, I've had someone a couple weeks ago that has had her own practice for 15 years and now wants to transition in-house. So I was like, I had a list of questions for her. Like, she's like, hey, like she's in the area. She's like, hey, let's go grab coffee. And I'm like, okay, but first, like, here's a list of questions I have for you. Like, what areas have you practiced in? Like, what do you like doing? Like, what kind of interaction have you had with, HR, your data team, like whatever have you, like different departments and wherever you work, like know what you want to bring to the table. Like if you want to work in a house, like most of the time you need to kind of be a generalist. Like as much as I'm not a proponent of law firms, I think a big thing is having at least 1 to 2 years. I know, I'm sorry, Kyle, I just really don't like them. But like I'm a big proponent of having at least 1 or 2 years of experience. Nice. So you have like a different foundation of different areas that you can kind of learn from. And it can kind of like show you what, different people in law firms, like how to interact with people. Cause like, as a new grad, like I hate to say it, but like you have to more likely than not, you have to know like the basics of how to interact with clients, how to, write a professional email, like things that most in-house just don't have time to teach you. So it just depends on what you're looking for and what you're looking at. So I would approach it to her question. I'm not going to pronounce your name because I don't want to butcher it. Shima, I think. But to your question, I would say, come to that person that you want to speak to. And my DMs are always open. Like, explain to me what you are looking for. What area of law are you looking for? Are you looking for a non-lawyer role? Like, what are you looking for? And it's better for me to help you that way.
I think having a point of authenticity, or not a point of authenticity, again, we're using that word, but think is important, even though I don't like it. Having an authentic point of connection is important, right? You don't want to just walk in with a general ask. You want to walk in and say, like, something about you resonated with me. The law school you went to, where you're from, the post that you recently did that I really, really liked for this reason. And that I have found is the best jumping off point for a connection. I'm much more likely to respond. I'm much more likely to be interested in your story and figure out why it resonated and learn from you. And then that becomes the foundation for everything else. Because I mean, look, I think we all get a bunch of different messages and emails, especially on LinkedIn. We get the cold email, and we get so many of them. Sometimes it's hard to respond, or I don't want to respond. Yeah. But I will almost 100% of the time respond to a, hey, here's a reason I'm talking to you. It has to do with you or something that we share in common. It's really, really hard, human nature, to ignore that. And I think that's also just, again, you want to talk to those people and help those people. And so that's why I've talked to law students I've never met before that way. We've Zoomed and met in real life. I've talked to lawyers at other law firms, clients, the whole gamut, right? Just because something resonated, right? I mean, I remember I reached out to one of the panelists from the event of this 2 weeks ago because something he said, I was like, that is, never heard that before. I really, really like that. And I just wanted to say, keep saying that, keep doing it. I like it. It was a couple of messages, but he responded, and we had a little conversation because it was real, right?
And to add to what Kyle said and to what I said, like, you don't have to know exactly what you're going to do. Trust me, my career has gone like this, like Heather said, but having ideas just to throw them out there, and we can, expand on that and go through it. Like, no one knows what they want to do right out of law school. And if you do, great, that's more power to you, but your journey is just beginning. So
I would add a couple of points. I agree with everything that's been said. One is make sure your own LinkedIn profile is built out. That doesn't mean that you have to post regularly, but just let me be able to glance at it and see, like, where did you go to college? Where are you in law school, or did you go? And have you had any jobs? Even if I have no connection to any of those, I just want to be able to have a general sense of those things. Maybe I do have an unexpected connection you can't see. And at least I know you're a real person, because we also get like bot and weird spammy messages all the time. And then the other I would say is kind of building on what Kyle said, but like, be really specific about why the person you're reaching out to is the best person to answer your question. If you just graduated from law school and you're reaching out to me, are you somebody who thinks you're into entrepreneurship and also wants big law training and then to go in-house? Because if you're just kind of looking for general advice, reaching out to somebody who graduated over a decade ago, I mean it in the most respectful way possible, but I get dozens of these requests a month. And so if you could instead talk to like a third-year lawyer who probably doesn't have as many people reaching out yet because they haven't accumulated that breadth of experience, do that. And it's the same way I'm not going to reach out to like the GC of a, top 100 public company unless that's exactly where I want to go, because they're further along in their career and that's not my next step. You can reach out to your next step. That's the best bet. They're
very nice, by the way. From someone who's been talking to GCs, not to brag a little bit, but they're very nice people.
A little bit.
They're fine. They're fine.
I have to do it at least once during one of these. I have to. So I think this is all really good advice. I'm going to tackle, I think, two of these questions real quick because I think they're directed at me. Do you set a limit of the amount of time you are on LinkedIn per day?
No.
Well, listen, to be fair, this is my job. So it's a little different. And I also do post sometimes, sometimes, maybe never, who knows, through the LinkedIn, the Lawtrades LinkedIn. So
trust me, we know when you post on there, okay? Like, we can tell. We know when it's coming from that versus just a general one. We know.
Fair point. And also keep in mind, I'm not just on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and I'm managing some other accounts. So there's no limit. But that being said, you probably it doesn't hurt to put a limit. There's a scenario where you get sucked into social media and it's hard to get out.
Yeah. I took my notifications off, but it doesn't really help. I mean, at least I don't check it every 5 seconds like I used to, but I still, scroll my apps to get to it and click it open. But at least I don't have DMs coming in. I don't have, hey, this person commented on this. I don't see that anymore. If I go in there, then that's where it's all at. So that's helped a lot.
I've muted my Twitter notifications.
Yeah.
Like I've done the same thing. So yeah, so like in terms of limited time, if you're looking to be a professional utilizing social media, I'd probably put a limit of like maybe 2 hours cumulatively across the day. I mean, maybe more. I mean, Heather, you gave me quite of a stare there. I don't know if.
I think it depends on what you're doing. Like,
Sure.
I knew that somebody who was working for me was spending 2 hours and like in-house, I mean, 2 hours of their working day on LinkedIn. I meant
the whole day. Like,
okay. But
like
I
morning and night.
Being cognizant also, and maybe this is just me, but I'm very cognizant of the optics of it.
Sure.
So I don't work like kind of traditional working hours. I just don't. I think most of us don't anymore now that there's this remote world. But I'm still like, I typically schedule my posts. I schedule them ahead of time to go live at 7 a.m. And I'll comment, like respond to comments during lunch and after work, sometimes not even during lunch. But I try and make really clear to everyone who's around me that I'm not spending time that they need me, since I'm being paid by my company, to do LinkedIn. Because yes, LinkedIn is professionally valuable, but I'm not as directly benefiting the company by doing that as I am by like responding to all the people who need me. But again, it's totally different and depends on where you are. And I used to think about it differently. I'm newer to my company, but that's just me. I'm very, very aware.
No, that's a very
it's a fair point. Like
well, I don't have a limit for the opposite reason, right? I mean,
because we're trying to build clients. Yeah,
I'm on the cool video call with two lawyers that want, like 3 people who one's a client, 2 could be client. My point being, like, LinkedIn is part of the business development plan for a lot. If it's not, it should be for a lot of younger and more deeper into their career lawyers. So I don't put a hard limit on it, right? I kind of go where it takes me. That doesn't mean, though, to like Heather's point and just like Brittany said, I don't spend my entire day on LinkedIn because I have to get work done, right?
Yeah.
And people need me, and I need to respond to emails. And
my biggest thing is, as long as we're getting our job done, and our work product's still the same, like it shouldn't matter.
I don't want to. I'm at the point where like, I don't have
moments, right?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
I find that, like Heather, I'll post something and then I'll step away usually for 2 or 3 or 4 hours because I've got the post done, and now I need to go do all the other things that I have to do that are part of the actual job description, right? And then I'll come back during lunch, or I'll come back in the afternoon when I'm going to get a coffee and look at what's happened, and then I'll look again once I put my son down, right? It just kind of falls into natural rhythms. I just don't want to get sucked into the notification game, right?
Yeah, especially like every so often you have something go really viral and you get like 10,000 notifications and your phone is consumed. You're like, all right, if you're like, that's the thing. If you don't shut it off, you're like, all right, my day's ruined because my buzz, it just like goes constantly. Your computer is buzzing, your brain is buzzing. Like it's an overwhelming, it's too much. So to answer that, like, just set limits what's appropriate to what you're doing, right? Again, I think Heather and Kyle, those 2 points in a row were perfect. Like if you're in-house, maybe it's not the best to like really like be on there a lot. But for Kyle's point, like if Kyle's trying to do business development, maybe it makes a lot more sense. So, so try not to laugh, guys. It's really hard. So we got one more question I wanted to tackle. And it's a good question. How do you balance personal with professional on LinkedIn and Twitter? How do you think bringing the personal into the conversation helps develop a brand and connect with clients on another level?
I think you won't know about my personal life on LinkedIn. I refuse to talk about it. It's probably because I come from a law enforcement background, but I grew up that way, both my parents. So I'm very cognizant of my privacy. I do share personal anecdotes of my career that I think will help people that are in a situation that I was in, 5-10 years ago. But I think you just have to, especially now that I've had the whole like copying thing, like now I see it more and more that people can take a lot from the internet. So you just have to be cognizant of what you post. And, even this is obviously LinkedIn, but like even other platforms, like don't post where you're at, or like don't post when you're there, like wait, until after you leave, wherever, whatever you're posting, just so like anything crazy, like you don't have to worry about it.
Yep. No, I think it's great advice.
So I don't know if I wouldn't say it's the opposite approach, because I very much am cognizant, especially of other people's privacy, right? I rarely want to post something that somebody else hasn't approved. It's their face, it's their comment, it's their thought, right? But as to my life, I kind of treat LinkedIn like an extension of my brain, right, with a lot more filters. But my point being, the things that are hard for me right now is I've got a 2-year-old and I've got a daughter coming in January. Those are the things that I think about all the time. I know those are things other people think about all the time too, and I want to get everyone's input and thoughts. I want to start conversations around that because that's what's important to me. So you'll see my son on LinkedIn, not every day. He's not a prop, but he is the most important thing for me right now, and so is my wife. And so those are things that I'll talk about and use as conversation starters because they're starting thoughts in my brain, right?
Sure.
And I think that means that there's something real there, and that's the kind of thing that I want to talk about. But I think there is a balance, right? Even those, topics, oftentimes I'll try to connect them. I won't always, but I'll usually try to connect them to something personal or professionally. Again, because those are the challenges that I'm facing, right? But I think everyone's got a different balance. And then the important thing is to just be thoughtful about it, and certainly be respectful of other the people that you're mentioning and posting about privacy, right? My wife will appear every once in a while, but very rarely, because again, I know that she's not interested in being posted on LinkedIn that often.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I think, in between Kyle and Brittany, but I think everybody, as Kyle just said, has to come up with their own comfort levels. So I have kind of like 2 rules posting about my family. I don't say my son's name, and you'll never see his face on LinkedIn. But, again, that's just mine. And I do post him on other social media like Facebook, which is more locked down. So who knows? You just have to figure out what you're comfortable with and go with it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have no one knows here, but I have a personal Instagram that's not related to anything else. Because I know, shocker. Because sometimes I'm a bit of a parody of myself, so I know.
Sometimes.
So on that, to Heather's point, I will post pictures of my son. I will post more pictures of my wife and I, and things that we do in my family. I tend to go in that direction as well, where I would sometimes, I think I'll post my wife every so often on LinkedIn. But I think, Kyle, to your point, she doesn't want to she's not a prop, right? She's heavily in my life. So I use her in these posts, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I post about you X, Y, and Z? I think the most recent one, it was like a work thing, right, that she had just recently done.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I try to keep things, not to say I don't talk about personal things. I talk about plenty of personal things that affect me. I talk about my anxiety. I talk about depression. I talk about things that really are, that are going on in my life. But when it comes to truly, when I say personal, I think Brittany, to your point, hey, I'm at so-and-so location with so-and-so and so-and-so. It's not going to happen, generally speaking, unless it's a Lawtrades happy hour, which everyone here is invited to. But otherwise, I'm not posting those things. And I generally prefer to post more professional things. But that being said, sometimes I think I can be transparent here. I mean, sometimes I'm a character online, so I post as the character. So generally speaking, my character doesn't have a family. My character is the dumb associate. So that generally doesn't come across. So, but that's my
real life character. They're the same thing. I know both of them. They're the same.
If opposing counsel was on, if any of my opposing counsel was on here, they would agree with you. So I think that's fair. But yeah, that's my approach. I mean, you could definitely take a personal approach online. I love sometimes I know there's one person, Karen Vladik, posts a lot of great personal stories. She does a podcast in Loco Parentes, if anyone's watching that follows it, with her husband Steve. Great personal stuff. She does it really well, and it's because it is just like how your point, it's a part of her life, obviously, and it's always top of mind. So it's really great content. It resonates with me because I have young kids, Kyle, you have young kids, Heather, you have young kids. So it's I definitely get it. So it's really a fine line. Guys, I have one last question, I swear. Then I will let you guys go. The billable hours. I know your billable time is precious. Well, I guess Kyle's is. Everyone else is not. So time is precious, but not billable precious. So guys, are any of you guys using LinkedIn audio? That was a question we received. I'll preliminarily say I'm not, and I don't intend.
What is it? I was just going to ask, what is it?
I think it's Twitter has, squares, like Twitter squares, where it's an audio function where a bunch of, think Clubhouse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't.
I still know what you're talking about.
Perfect.
I don't think I have I didn't have Clubhouse. I don't know if I do now. I had Android at the time. I know I'm getting an iPhone this week. Don't come after me.
We could have done a whole thing just on that.
Hey, I've had Android for 15 years, so but yeah, I don't know anything about it. I don't even know it was a thing. I would probably have to search my profile to find it. I don't know.
That's fine. So I think the answer is no.
To
Well, I
that
don't want
point,
it.
so-
Like LinkedIn is cool because you can read it really quickly and scan it. I don't want to listen to anything, and I want to be able to do it possibly while other things are going on.
That's my thought. Like it's
that's
just
the best
reading.
part, right? Like one day LinkedIn a long time ago said, not that long ago, probably actually said like, congratulations, you've all unlocked creator mode. And I was like, what the hell is that? Right? Like, I don't know what this is. It just kind of happened, right? My point is I got there by just posting and having conversations. I didn't have to be a like influencer robot to get there. I was able to get the utility out of the device without having the fancy functions. I still don't have LinkedIn Premium, which people are surprised by.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
I'm like, what benefit are you going to give me? And I keep looking at the benefits. I'm like, yeah, no.
No, there's no benefit.
Right? Yeah, I don't need ads much.
If anyone from LinkedIn's watching, there's no benefit. Please don't.
Sorry.
Promote my status on there.
Can you still send me that hoodie that I've been asking for like a month, please? Thanks.
It's a really good hoodie. I have it. It's really good.
Well, thanks.
We eventually got the laugh button. I think that was Brittany and Matt collectively got the laugh button. I give you the credit for that.
Trust me, I've been asking.
I haven't laughed this hard at an event in a long time, guys. I appreciate it. On that note, I'm going to wrap up, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Our next event is Thursday, the 29th. It's about Legal Ops 101. Everything you need to know about setting up a legal ops team. The speakers are from Meta, Etsy, and Nutanix. I think that was right. Thank you again, everybody. Also, we have an in-house community through Slack. If you have any interest, please reach out to me, reach out to Hannah Longman. And that's it. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you online.
Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everybody.